Hi, this is Matt Bernstein from skillhance.com, and I am an online instructor helping over 55,000 students start their own successful side business. But I'm going to make the proper assumption that you have no idea who I am. Do you need more money to become financially stable, but you don't have enough time or money to invest? Skillhance members get access to cutting-edge training courses and passionate support communities that help them start a side business more quickly and easily. Because we've discovered principles, strategies, and technologies that produce real, measurable business results without the expensive costs. I am a communication graduate from the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and while I was studying, I was learning about this income inequality, and I thought that I could participate in the solution by teaching people how to start their own successful side business. It all started because I was selling on eBay, making $775,000 in my first 2 years selling online, selling sports card cases actually, and I thought that this could be part of the solution to income inequality. Thank you so much. This has been Matt Bernstein from skillhance.com. Hi, this is Matt Bernstein with skillhance.com. We do new episodes every Tuesday morning, and today you are going to learn strategies to improve your concentration. If only you can concentrate more, you could probably accomplish almost anything. Ultimately, success often comes down to who is willing to work the hardest. Ask yourself this: how many hours of your working day do you really spend producing your optimal amount of output? Most of us, we only really work our best for a couple hours a day. The rest of the time we're spending looking at emails, we spend surfing the web, or we spend on Facebook. The next question is how you can make it work for you and maintain your focus as long as you need it to on any given thing. Most people, unfortunately, will go about this in the entirely wrong way. That's because they're constantly trying to fight their natural inclination to pay attention to certain things, and in turn, they end up struggling to stay focused. When you try and force yourself to focus on a Word document you're working on rather than your Facebook page or whatever else is trying to steal your attention, you're essentially engaging and trying to actively force yourself to focus on that thing and block out the other distractions. Something else to bear in mind here too is that you're maintaining such intense focus is very tiring and actually requires a lot of energy. It's easy to become worn out as a result. So what do you do instead? You ensure that what you need to focus on is generally fascinating and engaging. To do this, you have to find something that truly motivates you and something that drives you. If you manage to find something that really does matter to you, you will have an intrinsic motivation without even trying. In other words, your brain will produce the reward hormone, dopamine, automatically bringing your focus strongly to what you are doing. Basically, when you struggle to stop looking at Facebook, it's because your brain finds Facebook more rewarding than what you're currently doing. The same goes for YouTube or any other game. After all, these things are designed to be highly rewarding and almost addictive. But if your job is more fascinating and more interesting than Facebook, then you won't be tempted to bring it out of your pocket. Think about it. When was the last time you checked Facebook at the movies, on a roller coaster, or at a concert featuring your favorite band? It's rare. Imagine if you enjoyed everything as much as your favorite band. Now, if you'd be more focused and more present at all times, you'd live a richer and more rewarding life that resulted in a better achievement. Flow states and startups. Another interesting neuroscience subject that relates to concentration is flow state. A flow state is characterized as a state of mind where the individual experiences intense concentration and focus, where they are highly engaged with what they are doing. Today, researchers believe that flow states may be behind many of the biggest breakthroughs and achievements in human history, and it is believed that this is the most productive, efficient, and effective mental state that we can achieve. Chances are that you may have experienced a flow state yourself. Examples of flow state: when you're engaging in sports and the world almost seems so slowed down, allowing you to react with perfect clarity and reaction speed. When you're deep in conversation, you lose track of time. You check the time and you realize it's 3 a.m. When you're so deep in work that you find yourself ignoring the need to go to the toilet or even get up to eat. These are all examples of flow states. And in the next lecture, we are going to learn how to love what you do and find your passion. If you're working in a boring office job filled with people you don't like in an environment that you find uninspiring, then you won't be in flow and you'll struggle to concentrate. This is bad news. The same goes if you're stacking shelves in a grocery store. Unless you're super passionate about groceries, you're probably not in flow and you're probably not working optimally. For these reasons, you need to change your career right now, and if you want to fulfill your potential. That means finding your call, finding the thing that will motivate you to get up first thing in the morning. Now, a lot of people will say you can't do this. They have too many responsibilities and financial strains to just up and leave their current job. Good thing for you, there are some things that you can do to start moving towards a career you truly love. Start looking for outside work while at your current job. You don't need to quit your day job until you've found your perfect position elsewhere. So there's really no risk to that. And alternatively, starting a side project from home in the form of a small business. You can create a blog, start selling products, and more. And then wait until it's earning enough money to support you when you love your current employment. Think about what it is that truly makes you excited. Ask yourself when you felt truly energized at work. Think about the jobs that your role models have. Think about what you love doing and all the ways that it can be made into a career. Don't be afraid to combine jobs or think outside the box. There's really nothing stopping you from having a part-time job and a small business venture. Visualize what success looks like and what happiness looks like to you. Now think about what the steps you need to take to get there. What career would support this lifestyle? Methods for maintaining concentration. No matter what your job entails, there are going to be times when you're not feeling particularly motivated or when you're feeling supercharged. One tip is to try thinking about what it is about your job that is really exciting or at least motivating to you. If you're currently working in a job that you find dull, for instance, then remind yourself why it is that you're doing the work and how it can eventually lead to a better lifestyle. Perhaps you're working here in order to earn enough money to launch your dream business. Maybe you're working here to support your family. Focus on that, and that will remind you why your job really matters and why it's worth your full attention. Creating a longer-term goal is a great way to do this. Even if your current career and lifestyle doesn't excite you, then think about what your long-term goals are and find something to feel excited and passionate about. Those of you who studied any psychology might recognize this as cognitive restructuring. Cognitive restructuring essentially works with two stages: identifying the negative thoughts that are leading to stress, changing those thought process using a range of techniques. So if you're afraid of speaking in public, for instance, you would first use mindfulness meditation, listening to your own thoughts, and thought reporting, writing a journal of what you think just before speaking, and then see what negative thoughts were causing that anxiety. It might be that you found yourself thinking about things, what if everybody laughs at me? Or what if I might stutter? Which of course is then the causes you to freeze and to perform badly. Thus you use two tools called thought challenging and hypothesis testing. Thought challenging means that you challenge your beliefs and break them down to see if they're accurate. Are people really likely to laugh at you? Or are they more likely to be sympathetic and polite and continue listening? Likewise, does it really matter if you stutter? Ultimately, you'll never see these people again and you'll never claim to be an amazing speaker. So who cares? This should hopefully help you relax and thus avoid the stressful fight or flight response. At the same time, you need to use the hypothesis testing to actually test the theory. This might mean standing up to speak in front of a crowd and then purposely stuttering. It's terrifying, but you'll very quickly learn that it really doesn't matter what happens. People are kind and you'll survive. But cognitive restructuring can be used in the reverse manner. You can also use this to tell yourself that something is important and to focus on it when it really matters, and repeat this mantra: I need to keep working on this. If I work now, I can rest later. This work will help me achieve my goals. Focus on the emotions that drive you to keep going and put aside any negative thoughts, like 5 minutes on Facebook won't hurt. We all know that 5 minutes on Facebook is never actually 5 minutes. As soon as you start using these techniques, you will actually start to lead your brain states and force yourself to focus on the things that matter. When you do this, you will come to believe that what you're actually doing is very important, and as such, your brain will respond in kind by producing the necessary neurotransmitters to keep you engaged and alert. Other things like distractions won't seem as important, and thus they won't be able to actually distract you. It's your perception that counts. It doesn't actually matter what we're doing now or how important it is. What matters is how important we think it is. Let's put it this way. If you were standing on top of a volcano and it erupted, this would cause you to be in a lot of panic, and your brain would trigger the fight or flight response, and your heart rate would increase, your focus would narrow, and you'd feel highly stressed and scared. Did the volcano cause this? No. Your belief that you were about to incinerate did. If you were in the exact same position but you genuinely believed that you were invincible, then you wouldn't have the same fight or flight response. You'd be able to stand back and just relax while the lava erupted around you. Of course, you'd also die, but your neurochemical profile would be completely different. If you can change your perception of the events, then you can control the release of neurotransmitters, and you can control the activation of brain areas, and you can make sure that you're in the perfect state of mind for whatever task awaits you. You can be even more present in the moment when you're with friends, and more focused on the work, and more relaxed when you're thinking creatively and engaging in your default mode network. If you perceive something as important, then you will believe that it is important, and your body will react accordingly. Making a schedule. The techniques covered in the last lecture will help you maintain your focus and concentration for long periods, but ultimately, this is still very reactive. You're still effectively fighting against the urge to break focus. In other words, we can still do better. And one way we can accomplish this is by going to set yourself up for success at the start of the day by creating a schedule that will help you stay on task to get the most done. So how do you go about this? Starting the day. The first thing to do at the start of the day, with the right tasks. And actually, this has a lot to do with how you end the day. A good tip you see is at the end of the day by leaving one task at least incomplete. This might sound like the last thing that you should be doing, but in fact, it can have a very positive impact. Why? Because when you leave your job unfinished, it creates a psychological imperative to finish it first the next day. We hate leaving jobs unfinished, and it's something is half done. This creates a big urge to finish working on it as soon as possible. And this is incredibly valuable because once you begin your work, you'll find that it helps to get you into flow, like starting your car. Starting actually is what takes the most effort and is the most difficult in many cases. An alternative option is to complete a fun and easy task at first. Again, this goes against many of what many people think is the smartest move. Often we feel inclined to start by completing the most difficult and unpleasant task so it's out of the way. Do this and you'll often find yourself putting off getting started. Instead, start with the fun and enjoyable job and you'll be able to ease yourself into your harder work day. Another tip is to try and remove the most frustrating tasks from your schedule early on. Let's say, for instance, that you need to call a client or a partner and you have a difficult conversation about some work you're delivering late. Many of us will see this as putting off continuously, but in doing so, we actually end up making life worse for ourselves. The longer you put off completing these tasks, the longer they're going to play in your mind and distract you from what you need to be doing. Remember everything we discussed regarding the neuroscience of concentration? When you have these open loops, as Tim Ferriss calls them, the author of 4-Hour Workweek, you have a lot of additional small things pulling at your attention and directing you away from the bigger and more important tasks you need to be focused on. Likewise, when you have lots of small things playing on your brain, it makes it impossible to get to the state of flow as you'll constantly be interrupted. So close those open loops as quickly as possible and free up the maximum amount of mental energy to focus on a single big tasks for long periods. Call those clients, send emails, and completely annoying little jobs. Then sit down with a cup of coffee and start focusing on the big stuff. Zombie work. Zombie work is any work that you need to do that doesn't require your full attention, or at least doesn't require you to be highly focused. Writing an email, for instance, is not an example of zombie work. Why? Because this requires you to use the creative parts of your brain and really focus on what you're doing. On the other hand, stuffing envelopes or doing data entry are examples of zombie work. To put it another way, zombie work is anything you can do equally well with the TV on in the background. This is actually a particularly useful type of work as it allows you to fill time when you don't have your full attention available. If you're tired first thing in the morning or last thing at night, you can't really focus, then you can use your zombie work to stay productive without taxing yourself. You can also strategically place zombie work in between your longer work projects to give yourself a little bit of chance to recover mentally. Or how about using to make the most of your time when you're going to be focused to multitask? Setting rewards. When you first get to work, what is the first thing you do? For a lot of people, the answer is they check their emails to see if anything important has come up. Again, this sounds smart, but it's not really a good idea. Unfortunately, when you check your email, first thing you do in the day, you'll be setting yourself up to be reactive state rather than a proactive state. What's more, you'll quite likely to be spending a ton of time on it. There's also a good chance that you'll end up checking the email again later, and again and again. Instead, then try turning your email into a reward for good work. Not only will this spur you to work harder, but it also means that you don't have a lot of interruptions. Let's say you have 10,000 words to write in a day, so tell yourself you can only check your email after you've written 2,000 words. Want a cup of tea? Then another 1,000 words. Want to check Facebook for 10 minutes? That'll cost you 5,000. Now, instead of wasting hours checking your email, browsing Facebook, and making tea, you'll get those rewards once you've written 8,000 words. And you're almost finished. It makes a huge difference, so try it. So how do you go about concentrating more in your day-to-day life? The great thing about flow research is that it's showing us more and more ways to be more engaged with the environment and more excited about what we do. There are plenty of ways you can increase flow, and one of the most promising is to simply create more of a rich environment to spend time in. Simply put, if you're working in a gray cubicle at work, then your brain is going to shut down and go into autopilot. Conversely, if you work in an exciting modern office, then you're going to find yourself feeling more inspired, engaged, and interested in what you're doing. This can also be traced back to our evolutionary roots. Being in a novel environment back in the wild would have meant discovering a new area with new potential threats and new potential food sources. Thus, it paid to be more alert and more focused. You can work better then by making richer environments, but you can also be more engaged with life by making other environments richer and more exciting. Decorate your home with more interesting ornaments, with plants, and with more colorful paint and wallpaper. Take a different route at home when you walk back from work. Wear more colorful clothes. All of this will help you be more awake and more engaged. Find the fun. When you play a computer game, you're essentially training your brain and learning. And it's learning that the brain enjoys and that we can find addictive. Think about it. When you pick up a new game, you have to learn the controls. When you learn the new rules, then you gradually get better. Each time you do well, you hear a satisfying sound, see a flash of light, or a score to reward you. Learning these new skills causes you to form a neurological connection with your brain via something called the brain plasticity. At the same time, the reward tells your brain that this is a good performance, and thus the connection strengthens. This is what's addictive about games. So why is actual learning so boring? Why is work so boring? It's because it's repetitive. There's no instant sense of reward, and there's very little in the way of a challenge. So instead of just going through the motions, you need to find what's fun about your given situation, and you need to make it fun. You can turn learning into a game with lots of little rewards. Then you'll find studying better. Instead of just walking to work the same way every day, why not challenge yourself to discover a new route to cut off time without jogging or without avoiding the cracks? Sounds childish? That's the point. Kids love childish activities because their brains are so plastic at that age as they learn. If you keep making games for yourself, you'll keep learning and your brain will stay plastic. If what you're doing can't be made fun, then perhaps it could be made interesting. This is the same thing as we mentioned before. It's staying switched on for the long term, disconnect benefits of the situation. We need to stay focused at our job, so remind yourself why it matters and why it's important. Or think about it how it's interesting. Perhaps the social dynamics are more illuminating than what you first give them credit for. Likewise, if you're forced to read something dull, try and find something that's interesting about it, and you need to do a project on door locks for your degree, and then you try to find some kind of passion for that subject. Think about it. Doors locked are essentially a type of cryptography as expressed by a mechanic. If you like computers, then maybe think about how a door locks are related to cybersecurity. There's always some angle you can use to make a subject more interesting. Regaining concentration when you lose it. Hopefully all of this advice is helping you stay more focused and alert, to be more present and engaged no matter what the activity. But you're still going to need a contingency plan for when things go wrong. When you lose concentration, then what do? Take a break. Remember, concentration takes energy, and most people agree that there is only a finite amount of time that it's possible to stay highly focused and productive. What do you do once your concentration is broken or you find yourself starting to flag and run out of steam? One answer is to take time out and give yourself a break. If you try to force yourself through this difficult point, then in all likelihood, you will either perform subpar work or just waste time. In fact, there are very few things worse than half working. As the old adage goes, walk or sit, don't wobble. Instead of trying to force yourself to work, give yourself some legitimate time off to recharge and spend that time eating or just relaxing, either for a brief 5 minutes or for a longer hour. Brain fuel. This is something that you hear a lot less often than you should. If you're running out of focus and struggling to concentrate, then you need to eat. Eventually, your energy runs out and you're left with a low inspiration and your brain running slowly. Fuel up with some carbs and you'll be able to dive back in, carrying on working. Here's something else to consider. Certain foods and supplements can be very effective at helping you regain your mental energy. Eating is a crucial way to get back some energy. Staying hydrated is also super important. Drinking water throughout the day is super important task that you need to do in order to help strengthen your concentration. How to power nap. If this hasn't helped you regain your focus, then what you might need is a power nap. It's one of the most effective tools in your arsenal when it comes to regaining and maintaining concentration. The secret is to make sure that you've slept for less than 40 minutes, which will ensure that you don't enter deep sleep. If you do enter deep sleep of more than 40 minutes, then you need to make sure you go all the way to 90 minutes, in which case you'll be able to sleep up after one completed cycle. Long-term advice for keeping concentrated as you approach your goals. Much of what we discussed is about focusing in the short-term work or what you're doing. Really though, concentration is most powerful when it's maintained over time. What really counts is the ability to stay focused on your goals and work day in and day out, making it happen. Break your goals down into steps. One tip to do is break your goals down into smaller tasks. If you want to lose weight, you don't set your goal of losing 50 pounds in 1 year because it's just too distant and too out of your control. Instead, set the goal of exercising 4 times a week for 1 year. The weight will take care of itself, but the goal you have is much easier to control and much more instantly rewarding. Remember what we said about getting a constant dose of dopamine as you get rewarded for your hard work? Break your goals down into smaller steps and it will be much easier to use the cognitive restructuring techniques we discussed earlier in the lecture to stay focused on them. Training your concentration. Thanks to something called brain plasticity, which we touched earlier, the brain is able to adapt the shape and size depending on how we use it. If you spend lots of time playing the cello, for instance, then the area of the brain of the motor cortex responsible for fine finger control will grow over time. New connections will form between neurons, and the connections that you already have will become thicker. Likewise, if you spend lots of time concentrating, guess what happens? You train your concentration that gets bigger too. Conversely though, if you're constantly switching between tasks and you never concentrate for more than a couple minutes, your ability to concentrate will weaken. This is one of the biggest dangers of the technological world that we live in. If you're constantly using your phone or going from one social media website to the other, then you'll find your ability to concentrate weaken. Don't worry if you're not the master of concentration just yet, because the key is that you keep at it, in which case you'll get better as your brain develops. Practice concentration at every opportunity and engage in tasks that require focus. If you do this enough, you'll eventually develop the necessary areas of your brain and you'll become a master at it. Mindfulness. We earlier discussed mindfulness as a part of cognitive restructuring used to identify the context of your thoughts. Mindfulness can also be more of a general term that describes a type of meditation where you become more mindful of your own body, mind, and environment, self-awareness. So studies show that practicing mindfulness or any kind of meditation can help you become more present in the moment and to have a better long-term focus. So there you have it. A ton of different strategies you can use to increase your focus and your concentration at work and in life, in the short term and in the long term. We covered some in-depth neuroscience and looked at how concentration in the brain works, but we also distilled that information into some actionable steps that you can use for yourself. It's a lot to take in, so in case you weren't concentrating, let's recap some take-home points. Concentration is the result of dopamine, along with the action of your salience network to direct our attention to what we deem is most important. Concentration takes energy. To be effective, you need to recognize this and try to maintain that energy, either by accepting the ebbs and flows in your workload or by fueling yourself with power naps, snacks, and breaks. We automatically concentrate on the things we find most interesting, engaging, and rewarding. Instead of forcing yourself to engage with something dull, it's often easier to change the nature of the work or your lifestyle. Find something that you're passionate about, and you'll be able to be in constant state of flow, resulting in more happiness, focus, and productivity. Then again, you can often find the fun or the fascination in even the dullest tasks. You just have to look for it. Remind yourself why you're doing this. Break your goals down into steps and focus on your end game to power through your day-to-day boringness. Remove outside distractions, use desk toys and music, unplug from the web for a little bit to avoid your urge to check email or Facebook, and remove your smartphone. Practice concentration because it can be trained. Meditation is also shown to improve concentration and flow. Create a more engaged and rich environment for work and relaxation. Practice cognitive behavioral therapy to take control of your thoughts. With that, you're ready to take control of your brain and master your concentration. Once you focus, you'll find that everything becomes easier and the whole world becomes more colorful and rewarding. Thank you so much for listening to this. This is Matt Bernstein with skillhance.com. We do new episodes every Tuesday morning, helping hardworking individuals such as yourself start and grow a successful side business. Please share this episode with someone who you think truly needs it.